Hello, I'm the Pageant Nerd, and welcome to part 1 of my latest series, Scoring Miss Universe.
Will both of you come right down here, please. Now, one of you is about to become Miss Universe. The other will be the first runner-up.
Determining the winner of a beauty pageant is without doubt a highly subjective process. It's not like there's a rule book dictating how contestants are awarded points and ranked, like in certain sports.
And then Miss Universe. The first runner-up. The score you'll see on your screens at home for each of our contestants is the one she received in our preliminary swimsuit competition.
For periods in its history, Miss Universe has attempted to bring some level of science and transparency to its competition by way of televising the judges' scores during certain stages of the live telecast. This series will cover Miss Universe's history of televised scoring, looking at the all-time records, some nerdy and quirky facts, and of course the controversies. This series will not cover the fan-voted scores shown during the 2011 telecast, which for the record, I was not a fan of. Anyway, here we go.
Which will be swimsuits, evening gowns, and personal interviews.
While it's not exactly acceptable nowadays to score women, or men for that matter, on their physical attributes, I can't deny that I miss the intense and suspenseful moments that scoring provided in pageants past. Current Miss Universe owner IMG has attempted to create a more legitimate process by rebranding the judges the Selection Committee. Regardless, the panel is still comprised of celebrities and former title holders, not exactly the faceless, professionally trained judges you see in Olympic sports who use their strict set of scoring criteria I referred to earlier. As of 2020, the Miss Universe competition does not currently make public any of its scoring. The only true indications of judging and performance are when the semi-final field is first announced, and subsequently reduced round by round, all the way through to coronation. But that hasn't always been the case. Advances in computing technology meant that in 1978, live televised scoring excitedly made its debut in the 27th Miss Universe pageant in Acapulco, Mexico.
And tonight, for the first time, you at home can participate as you watch the judges pick the winners electronically.
Ireland's Lorraine Enriquez was the historic first Miss Universe contestant ever to be scored on live television.
The judges begin to press the buttons of the computer. She'll return to her place, and in moments, you at home will see her score.
Well, sort of. Her interview mark didn't appear on screen as expected. All was sorted for the next contestant, eventual winner Margaret Gardner of South Africa. Scoring of some delegates was comically low by more recent standards. Poor Miss Holland was awarded a measly 2.890 for her swimsuit performance. While scoring on finals night premiered in 1978, it wasn't until the following year in Perth, Australia, that the preliminary scores of the qualifying semi-finalists were revealed, as well as all contestants' preliminary swimsuit scores. That feature continued through to 1997, with the exception of 1989, for no apparent reason other than it was a poorly produced broadcast. The pageant itself, however, was beautifully colourful and energetic. Coincidentally or otherwise, the pageant's format underwent a seismic shift the following year in 1990. Its 30th edition on television, and 39th overall. For starters, the preliminary scores of all 71 delegates were displayed during the Parade of Nations, albeit not as a combined score, thus giving away who the semi-finalists were, but their results from each of the 3 preliminary rounds of competition: swimsuit, evening gown, and interview. This not only revealed who the standouts were with a panel of judges, but if you were diligent enough to get out your calculator, you could also determine who just missed out on placing. Spare a thought for Miss Iceland in 1992, for example, who didn't make the semi-finals with a prelims average of 8.773, the exact same score as Miss Sweden, who did. Rumour has it that her low interview score pushed her out of the semis, though the accountants may have split the women by going to a fourth decimal point. If you have a confirmed account of what happened, leave it in the comments below. Furthermore, during all 3 rounds of semi-final competition, each of the judges' marks were made known before the composite score was calculated, by removing the highest and lowest scores and averaging the rest. Ever since the pageant's inception in 1952, the final placements were awarded to a top 5, derived from the group of semi-finalists. But in 1990, that also changed. The 10 semi-finalists in Los Angeles were initially reduced to a top 6, and then a top 3, adding an additional round of Q&A competition, dialing up the suspense prior to coronation.
One of these 3 will be the new Miss Universe.
But as the new millennium approached, the appetite for televised scores dwindled. Preliminary scores were killed in 1998. Individual judges' scores went in 2002. And the following year in Panama, there were no televised scores whatsoever.
Their votes, along with members of the Miss Universe organization, determine the results and...
This was also a time when other factors in determining who made the first cut came into play. I plan to cover this and other effects on Miss Universe of the Trump era and the current IMG era in a future video. So, from 2003 to 2006, we were back in the dark again. No scores at any stage of competition. It's probably no coincidence that 2003 marked the start of a new host broadcaster of Miss Universe, NBC, which replaced CBS after its 42-year association with the pageant. But I digress. It was somewhat surprising that in 2007, scores made a return in Mexico City, the TV producers possibly realising one of the pageant's key entertainment elements had been unnecessarily sacrificed. The return was short-lived. 2010 was the most recent year of televised official scoring at Miss Universe, replaced in 2011 by an even shorter-lived experiment of live viewer polling, a sign of the times that also saw fan picks making the semi-finals.
Miss Portugal won the online fan vote, so this is the first time ever a contestant was voted in by the fan.
Interactivity in, blatant objectifying out. One can only assume the panel of judges, selection committee rather, continues to punch scores into their computer terminals as always, and that we just don't have visibility of them. Again, if you've got further insight, leave a comment below. That concludes my little history lesson and part 1 of this series, Scoring Miss Universe. In part 2, I'll cover the countries who've excelled in the scoring era, including the success rate of women who won prelims or the semi-finals and converted it into a coveted crown. A heads up, it's not as high as you'd think. Part 3 will look at the all-time scoring records, stories and controversies. Thanks for watching. I'll be back soon with part 2, but for now, it's goodbye from the Pageant Nerd.